All right, welcome to the Holistic Chamber of Commerce, Southwest Florida, monthly community education panels. This is today about grief and loss and everything that goes through that and resources to get through these challenging times. Whether they were a long time ago or 5 minutes ago, we're going to talk about ways to support you with this incredibly sensitive, educated, wonderful spiritual panel. So I'm very excited. Before we begin, I'd like to bring up Cheryl Friedman. She is sponsoring today's panel. She is a past life archaeologist, and I'll let her say a few words of what that means and why she chose this panel to sponsor today. So Cheryl Friedman.
Okay. Well, why don't you take that mic? I'll come over here because I don't want to stand in front of anybody. Hi, everybody. The past life archaeologist, let me just explain where that came from. I'm actually a psychotherapist, and I did trauma therapy for many years with children, sexually abused children. But since I moved here, I focused more on past life regression to help people release emotions that are attached to traumatic experiences in this life by digging up something from a past life. So whether you think it's a made-up story or you really believe in past lives, doesn't matter. So the reason I chose this panel was because of the work that I have done with trauma victims, and I hate to use that word. I think you're going to find that these lovely people up here are going to do exactly what I found out that people do not like when you're doing trauma therapy. They do not want to do talk therapy because they don't want to do something that's going to cause them more pain than they're already in. And what I do with the past life regression is a way to kind of take yourself back from that and be kind of an observer, and so release those emotions in that manner. And I think that's what most of these ladies are going to tell you about, that you don't have to go sit and talk therapy for 15 years to release everything that you feel when you have a loss and you're feeling grief. So
Perfect.
that's why I chose that. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Perfect.
Yes, and I have 3 pens over there with my information on it and my card, and there are some flyers that can be.
Wonderful. I also want to thank our other sponsors, Natural Awakenings Magazine, Lotus Blossom Clinic, of course, Unity of Fort Myers, and my radio show, Zeta Global Radio. There's some information there. We have lots and lots of shows that we've done. From my own experience, actually, years ago. How many of you know that when things come in threes? You've heard that before? So I had things come in 3, and I got hit 1 year after another. My nephew, my brother's only child, OD'd on heroin. The next year, my fiance, he checked out 2 days before Thanksgiving. And then a year later, one of my best friends died of cancer. So I had 3 years of just complete taking me out, and I was given the chance to do a radio show and talk about my feelings. So I brought on experts, everybody. I brought on Carol Brody Fleet from Widows Wear Stilettos. I brought, amazing organization, by the way. I brought on sleep experts. I brought in everybody you can, and suddenly I realized that there were a lot of other people who were grieving, and my show became very quickly listened to in countries I hadn't even heard of. Now I'm in 60 countries. So Zeta Global Radio is sponsoring this today. How many of you have lost a job? How many of you have lost a pet? How many of you are empty nested? I'm raising my hand like all 3 of those right now. And how many of you have lost a loved one? Okay, so we're all in the right place. We all understand what loss is all about. And so the Holistic Chamber of Commerce brings people together because so many of us help, just all of you and all of us, because we've experienced it, so we know what it's like to support you. That's what the Chamber is all about, creating all of these practitioners and modalities to bring forward what we need to do to help one another become one, because we're all experiencing the same energies. It may be a different sliver or a variation, but we are all walking through it, and that's what we're here today to share with you. Good enough? Okay. And I got through that without crying, so that means I've been doing some work over the last several years. All right, let's see who else is here. Denise Flood. Everybody, welcome Denise Flood. Denise has 25 years of experience in working, studying, and exploring healing modalities. Currently, she is a Young Living independent distributor, a certified cross-brain gym balance and EFT practitioner, a certified shamanic Reiki master, and a certified magnified healing light body facilitator. I think she left out something. Denise Flood is also on our current Gulf Coast Meditation CD, which several of us and some of our recording artists are here, and she did a beautiful track on forgiveness. And that is one of the best tracks when you're really wanting to heal. So I want to acknowledge Denise for that track and for everything that you do to bring to the world. All right. Next to Denise is Dolores Gozzi. Wisdom of the Sacred is a practice that connects, guides, supports, and teaches individuals on how to live an authentic life and lifestyle through the many different aspects of alternative therapy services, women's retreats, workshops, certification programs, and soul map energy readings, plus lifestyle creation coaching. Through this process, Dolores is able to offer sacred space for you to clear and bring down the barriers of self-limitations and shows you how to create healthy boundaries to align your truth and have a new mindset. Welcome, Dolores. Ooh, chills. Melissa Peshka is to my left. Melissa Peshka of Essential Life Mastery Coaching and Healing has been helping people beautify their lives for 32 years, first as a hairstylist, working on their outside. Currently as a certified life mastery coach, Reiki master teacher, angel card reader, and working on her certification for cognitive behavioral therapy. Her specialties are helping her clients work to heal from the traumas of life after divorce, living with an addict, grief and loss, and working with teens and young adults through their life changes. Her healing modalities help create lasting coping skills to use every day. Welcome, Melissa. Okay, Joan, let's see if I can pull this off. The small writing. It's worth it. Joan is an absolute powerhouse, and I'm so glad she's here on this panel. Joan Derrig-Heacox is a doctoral candidate of practical theology and hospital and hospice chaplain, currently in private practice, researching and providing grief care, healing and spiritual care for people experiencing and surviving physical, emotional, and mental suffering due to illness and injury, PTSD, and intimate partner and family abuse. Joan holds a master's in ministry and certification in pastoral care and counseling and spiritual direction. Joan is also a world traveler and avid sailor, encountering God's presence in the hearts of the people on land, at sea, and in the wind. Welcome, Joan. Give it up for everybody here. Nice round of applause. I think you can see you're in good hands with this wonderful, wonderful group. So, any questions before we begin? Because I just want you to know this is interactive. Anytime you can ask a question, you can stop us at any time. We're here as a group, we're here as a family, and we're here to heal. All right, well, why don't we start? You all have a microphone to share. And when you do use your microphone, just make sure you are nice and close up to it so we can get a good read. All right. Denise, let's start with you. Go ahead and just share a little bit about yourself and your connection to this topic and how you support grief and loss and what you do.
There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm so honored to be here today. I am what I would call a child of trauma. I grew up with a lot of trauma in my life, physical and sexual abuse as a child through the church. So I experienced a lot of grief and loss of my connection to God, which took me many years to recover. I lost my brother when I was 15 and he was 17. We went to the same high school. He was in a car accident. And I and my family did not talk about that because it was the era when you sucked it up, it was God's will, and you went on. I was a victim of rape in college, so I have a lot of empathy for women who have suffered unwanted touch, and I've lost 3 parents to cancer. So you could say I teach what I needed to learn, and that is my true connection to this. I am really adamant about a program I do called Change Your Frequency, Change Your Life, which I incorporate essential oils which help to raise your frequency. To me, they are God's gift to us on the planet. He created plants before he created us for our well-being, and plants and oils have proven frequencies. So what we put in and on our body truly affects us in spirit, mind, body. And tapping is my specialty, and that is a form of that I teach of self-care, because I think it's so important that you go home with things that you can use in your own home, because it's oftentimes when these things hit us, it might be in the middle of the night. It might be while we're driving. We need to have something that we can turn to in the midst of the now, and then seek out that alternative or complementary help when we can. So that's it in a nutshell.
Beautiful. Thank you. Dolores.
So on a personal note, in a time span of 9 months, I lost my dad. I lost my partner of 14 years. I lost my beautiful cat, and I was surrounded in complete awe of like, how did I get here? Not only did I respond to how did I get here, but there was also some external forces with the partnership and his family that I had to sort through. So there's many layers. And I think people truly forget the different layers of a loss and what goes on, and it depends upon the dynamics and the relationships within that loss. So there's many different things in which I utilized on how to really gain control of what I could control. And that was to work through the process the way I needed to work through it. And that will vary from person to person. And I used a lot of these skills based off of my hospice. I'm a hospice therapist for 14 years. And I see the different family dynamics on how people react and respond to situations. And we'll talk, I guess, a little bit on that later down the line. But this really helped me a lot to really draw upon that and really know that what I needed to do is based off of myself and what my needs were. And that's really important as well, too, to remember that. So with my practice, which I incorporate within my other job, my hospice work, is I really create programs or retreats, or I do, as a licensed massage therapist, I do body work sessions. I try to align you first to a place where you can be centered and grounded. So this way you can process the information. And within this, you want to really connect to your authentic self. And your authentic self also has many layers. Because if you're not true and authentic and you create a different story to your situation, you are not being authentic. So I do that in a lot of my work with the body work sessions, with classes and workshops and retreats.
Nice. Thank you, Dolores. Melissa. All right.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. And let's see, where do I start? One of my best accomplishments is my 2 beautiful children. My son is 21, and he has been through a lot of challenges in his young life. My daughter is 14, and she also has been through a lot of challenges in her life. And I also have a wonderful man in my life, my fiance. I would say my connection with all of this is working 32 years with people. I have heard everything. I've gone to funerals, I've gone to wakes, I've done birthday parties, I've sent flowers, I've heard about the divorce, the whole process of losing everything. to me, loss and grief, grief is something that it's such a natural thing, but it's not just regarding the death of a person, a soul, a pet. It's also the loss of something substantial. Looking back, I have always looked at death in a different kind of way. I believe that we are souls having a human experience. And we are all here for a purpose, a time, a place, to learn lessons, to help others, to be a part of other people's lives. And once our time is done, we move forward. And that, to me, helps me to get through the grieving process, knowing that I was blessed to have a person in my life that has taught me something and has been a part of something that was just magical. And I do believe that we will see each other on the other side. So I look at the grieving of death in a whole different way. As far as losses on the other sides, divorce, going through really rough divorces, you lose everything in that. You lose your spouse, you lose your dreams, your hopes for your future, everything of that. But if you break that all apart and look at it as to what lesson did we have to learn, and the universe put that in your place to go through, learn from, and move forward. And once you go through the process of acceptance, you get to move forward.
Thank you. All right, Joan.
Hashtag me too. What else can I say? First of all, welcome and thank you for the courage to come today. Grieving is a really difficult thing in our culture. However, it's a natural part of our life. We grieve, we lose, things are born, they live in us, around us, and they die. But they don't die totally, they still live within us and are reborn. So my name is Joan again. I am a specialist in trauma therapy and working with women, particularly who have experienced domestic violence. And I'm also a researcher, so I do this at an academic level. I'm in the doctoral program at St. Thomas University. I started out, I'm a mom. Like, I have 4 kids. I raised a whole bunch of teenage boys who all grew up to be wonderful young men. My daughter's 23. And I've traveled around the world and I've met a lot of people from a lot of different cultures. And every single person struggles with the same thing. And that is the experience of experiencing themselves as being loved, as being valued, as being worthy and beautiful. Not on the outside, but on the inside. And sometimes the world doesn't reflect that to us, either through our families, through media, television, commercials. How many of us women can never live up to the expectations that the world has created for us, and we live every day feeling bad because we're not skinny enough, tall enough, pretty enough, thin enough, I don't know, whatever that enough is. And so the work that I've been doing with researching, and at the very core of my research, is this loss, profound loss that occurs throughout life. But often it begins particularly in women in childhood, also with men, because the first person that told me they were domestically abused was a man. So I understand male domestic abuse. It's not just women, but I focus on women because it's a given. Abusing women is a given in our society. It's okay to abuse women. It's okay to abuse girls. Most of girls' first sexual encounter is rape. That's their first sexual encounter when they're young, unwanted touch. And so the disconnect begins very early for many of us, not just women, but men as well, the disconnect from our purest sense of self. we call it our authentic self, our spirit self, but that our true self, that which we were loved into being. Every one of us was loved into being. To live this life in a particular way, to meet people. And so that's my starting point, is trying to help people connect with that deepest sense of self and relate with that through the lens of love and compassion and forgiveness and mercy.
Thank you.
I know you want it back.
I have my own, thank you. We have a lot to cover today, so I'm just going to ask all of you to just all keep it really brief, and we'll just keep it flowing. And there's a lot to cover, and I want to take questions too as we go along. I want to see what you are feeling into, journeying, and working on. Actually, Dolores brought this question up, and I thought it was a really good one, and I'd like to bring this out to you, and then you don't all have to answer it, or whoever feels called to it. But how many of you, by a show of hands, believe that grief and loss are the same thing? So you all know it's something different, possibly. Okay. So I thought since you brought that up, and it was such a good, I thought maybe you'd start that conversation off.
Okay, so in my many years, I had to kind of connect the dots, of course, and on my hospice work as well, too. So what is loss? Loss is an absence of something in your life, correct? Whether it's a person, an animal, an event. Sometimes if you have your identity stolen, that's a loss as well, too. There's many different losses. Grief is the internal process of that loss. And when one mourns, that's the external process of the grief. So they're all interrelated and connected, but it's how that process happens for the person. It begins with loss, right? And then what happens after that? You have to process it somehow. You go inside. And that's where sometimes people can get kind of stuck. That's why we're here.
That's great. Anyone else want to touch on that at all? Yes. Okay. All right, Joan.
So thank you. You're welcome. Loss is not just an absence. Loss is about change. We may lose a spouse, but it's the changes that take place, the emptiness, the holes that are left in time that we have to figure out how to fill. For example, some of us have children that grow up, right? And we don't lose them, they don't die, they go off to college. And the relationship that we had with them has now changed as they come into adulthood, as they become more fully their own person, and we encourage them to do that, but yet we still hold on to them as like our little girls. And so loss is not just an absence, it's a change. And even though some changes are really positive, like gaining a fiance, it's a beautiful experience. But what has changed is perhaps being independent or living by yourself. So change is as much a part of loss, and even changes that are really positive, they can also create feelings of grief.
I love that. I was thinking about when you're saying changes, and sometimes we can prepare for the changes as if someone is ill and it's impending or terminal. And then there's other times where it's complete disruption, an accident. In my case, it was a suicide. Recently, my cat's been gone for 2 weeks, and that's a sudden change in the atmosphere of the dynamics of the 4 cats. There's suddenly 2 dogs and 2 cats. Suddenly, it's a little different. It's dealing with the changes and how to embrace that and move through it in an energetic, natural way. So I'm really glad we're having that conversation. Any questions or feedback or thoughts out there? Cheryl?
The only thing I wanted to add to what they were saying is that if you can just keep in mind that it is when you are in the midst of the lowest you can get that you have the greatest possibility to change and move upward. So grief and loss is not always a horrible, horrible thing. It feels horrible in the moment, but in that moment is when you have the greatest possibility to create something better.
Beautiful.
Can
Okay.
I add a comment to that as well?
Add a comment, Joan.
Okay, two things. Quickly, when you said, so when someone is dying, particularly dying or getting ready to go to college, or you're in that process of divorce, and you know that there's going to be this big change or loss, that's called anticipatory grief. And that creates a lot of feelings of anxiety because of the uncertainty of what's going to happen. So I want to honor that anticipatory grief, and most people don't even know that it exists, but you said it, so I want to tell you there's actually a name for it. And to anticipate grief, anticipate the loss. And as a comment and follow-up to Cheryl, when we think about loss actually is like a big U. So as you're moving through the loss and the letting go, at the very bottom of this U is isolation. So often you will find yourself in a place of isolation. And that's when you have that opportunity to connect with your purest sense of self and relate to yourself through the lens of love. And God, if you want to use God, as your language, or higher power. And that's where it can really be revealed to you who you really are, and find the courage in that place. So depression actually is the next step out of isolation. And I love what somebody said to me, that anxiety is about holding your breath. Depression is about being fully emptied, like you have no breath. So it's starting to breathe again. So out of isolation, you move into depression. Careful about that, because that is a clinical word. I want to also say it might be sadness, as you then begin the re-entry into relationships and friendships and engaging in feelings. And when you talked about mourning is also ritual. It's a way of actively choosing to express the feelings of grief that we're having. So I'll stop there. Sorry, when you're academic, you're...
Any questions? Any thoughts? Well, we're actually kind of flowing into, you started to touch on it, but I want to talk about it more and get each of your perspectives on stages of grief. And what are the stages? Are there stages? And what does that look like to you? Whether someone died or you had a loss 20 years ago or 2 minutes ago. I remember, as I mentioned, Carol Brody-Fleet, Widows Wear Stilettos, she says it doesn't matter if you were with your partner 50 years, 5 minutes, or 5 months. It doesn't matter if you are grieving. It is the same thing, you are a widow. And I remember that because there was people go into judgment of like, well, is it okay to judge if you've only been with someone 2 years versus 20 years? It's like, if you have a loss and you're feeling it. So I remember her making it feel so safe. It didn't matter. But let's talk about stages of grief and loss. Anyone want to start with that? Denise?
Thank you. And I think you were just diving into that just a moment ago. There are stages of grief that they'll clinically describe in steps, and I want to say that I have not found those steps to align with my own grief and loss. I think that, yes, shock probably would be the first one, and then they say anger, but I think like when my brother died, it was complete shock, and then it was denial. I didn't go through the anger stage till much later. And with all of the losses, I think they can be cyclical almost, where you could be going along and think, wow, I've solved that one. I'm sitting in the palm of God's hand. He's got me. And then a song will come on, or somebody will say something. I think you can even hear my voice crack up here occasionally as I'm talking about something that happened 20, 40, 50, 60 years ago for me. And still there are moments or aspects that come into my life that bring it forward. And I think that's actually a good thing, because it gives me an opportunity to go, wow, I am still dealing with that. And I'm going to do the work to bring it to the next level. So I'm going to keep it short.
No,
like
that
you
was, that was
said,
good.
but
It was, instead of stages, it was layers, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah. Dolores?
Yeah, and I like to add on to that as well too, because everybody's going to go through it very differently. Like I originally stated, it depends upon the situation, what the dynamics were in that situation. Of course, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, she came up with these stages, but it's not linear. And everybody has to remember that. So just because you see something, you have to remember it's going to be based off of your situation, what your family dynamics were, what your dynamics were in the relationship, as well as what agreements you had in that relationship, conscious or subconscious as well too, because we all have conscious and subconscious agreements. So we have to really, I think, identify the wound that we're going through. Are we upset and sad because someone has passed or something's no longer in our life? Or are we also very upset because, damn it, we had plans. We had plans to do this, this, and this, and now you left me high and dry, right? So what agreements do you have with these wounds? And you've got to identify, embrace, feel it, and really honor it. And I think that's where a lot of us sometimes we make up a story. So we have to just move on from that.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Melissa?
Okay, so just as everybody is saying, there are so many different types and ways that people grieve over whatever situation. One thing that comes to mind is judgment, okay? You could see a widow or widower, and then 6 months later, they're in a relationship. There's no textbook about grieving. There's nothing written that it has to be this way or that way or whatever. And it doesn't mean that their love is any less because they've moved forward any sooner than what you might be able to do. It's all personal. It's all personal, and everybody has their own way. And if you take a year or 5 years or 10 years, or like the old Italians used to do, they wear black for the rest of their lives and never talk to another man. That's what makes them tick, that's what works for them, and that's great. But everybody has a way of doing it, and it's finding your own way that feels comfortable for you. Don't let anybody judge you. Don't let anybody make criticism that you shouldn't be doing this or you should be doing that. Or when my mom passed, my dad would go to the cemetery every day. We're like, oh my God, he's there again. But you know what? That worked for him. That worked for him, and it made him happy. And I haven't been for 2 years, but I always feel the presence of her, and that's what makes me happy. Everybody has to find a place where they can release, where they can find healing, and just to move forward whenever they're ready. I don't want to say move on, and I don't want to say forget, because you will never forget. If you're talking about a death, that person will always be in your life. Who put that video up about the woman talking about her losses last night? There was a video on Facebook.
One of our chamber members.
Oh my God, it was amazing. She said she miscarried, her husband passed away. Oh, her husband passed away, and then her father passed away. And she has since remarried, has another child, has had other children come into the family. And she says her husband is still a part of her life. She never talks about him as past tense, because she wouldn't be who she is or where she is if he had never existed. So she honors him every day. So talk about your loved ones, talk about your ex-husband, your ex-wife, whatever, and honor that, because that is who you are. I am who I am today because of everything I've been through in my life. And you have to work through the anger, you have to heal and move forward.
What you got, Joan?
I'm sorry, I still go back to the academic piece. So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was a doctor, and her research study was the stages of grief for the person that was actually dying. So those stages of grief have now been expanded to consider those who are grieving after someone has died, but they were actually the stages of grief that she researched and noticed in her practice. And they are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So having been a hospice chaplain and walked with many people in their actual death, journey towards death, I was aware of those stages. Now, I also sat next to those people that were holding the hands of the loved one, and they didn't go through that same process. 1 minute, they were angry as crazy angry for, why are you leaving me? How can you get sick and die? To, if I would just hold your hand and sit by your bed, you'll live a little bit longer. And anger with God. Why are you taking my spouse away, or my best friend, or my child from me? How dare you do these things? So grieving is just all over the place. And it comes like waves sometimes, especially if it's been really recent. It can hit you like a wave. But if you remember that, if you think about the ocean, because I live on a sailboat, and my boat's always moving, so changes are always happening in my life. Every moment that I'm on the boat. But when a wave comes into shore, it comes like a big energy, and then the energy dissipates and it pulls back. So if we can trust that most of these emotional experiences we have last about 90 seconds, that powerful emotion that comes over you, whether it's grief or anger or denial or feelings of betrayal, that it comes over sometimes really big, and sometimes you'll get 2 or 3 of them at one time, but that it's a flowing of energy, and it will dissipate. And at the other end of it, you're going to be okay.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Can you repeat the steps that you said real quick?
Certainly.
Again, I'm just going to say that for the camera. So you're just going to repeat the steps of what you just mentioned.
Correct. So this is the stages of grief for the person who is actually dying that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross identified in her research study. The first is denial. The second is anger. The third is bargaining. And then depression. And then acceptance. Thank you for asking.
Can you define bargaining?
Bargaining is along the lines of saying to God, if I promise to love my spouse better for the rest of our lives, then you will let me live. Or, I mean, that's the first one that comes to mind. If I will tell my wife that I love her every day for the rest of her life, or if I promise I will never beat her again, God, will you just let me not die? So there's a lot of things. It really, the bargaining really has to do with where the trauma and the pain is. Like, what do they feel, the guilt that they may feel in their lives where they did not live to their fullest potential or caused harm towards another person. That's usually where the bargaining comes into play, like feeling like they're dying because they're being punished. But it really is about coming to terms with, the places where we need to seek forgiveness, either forgive ourselves for things we've done wrong or forgiving others for the harm that they have caused us, whether it's conscious or at an unconscious level.
I was hearing your forgiveness track in my head as she was saying that. I even posted it today subconsciously about, even if you can just say that right now, maybe with the group, how you said, I forgive you, I forgive myself. I mean, that whole track I thought was so beautiful. Are you able to just share a little bit of that real quickly?
I can.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay. So, one of the things I did on the meditation was I said, bring yourself to your heart center and look out upon whatever situation you need to forgive. And it's at a safe distance. And you say, I forgive myself. I forgive you. I forgive everything and anyone involved. And then I have people bring the light of divinity in through their crown chakra and through their throat chakra to shine light on any unspoken words, so that, as you were saying, you then can speak with healthy boundaries, and then bring that light into your heart again and bring that situation just a little bit closer and say, I forgive you. I forgive myself. I forgive everything and anything involved.
Thank you. I had her do that for a reason, because I felt energy picked up a little bit about how we go into judgment. You mentioned it earlier, and how we go into guilt, and how we go into anger and blame and all those energies. And I just wanted to kind of support that in clearing that in the field. Particularly survivors of suicide go through that a lot. And I thought that was important, that we can start to forgive ourselves and really here in this moment give ourselves permission to let go of any feelings that have been staying in your field, to allow you to kind of get over to the other side and start beginning that journey of seeing what is in front of you, what is ahead of you, and what you can bring to you that is more now for your upliftment. And you might be so surprised that there is so much waiting for you still. Okay. Any questions from the audience? Anybody feeling stuck that you want to ask this wonderful STEAM panel questions? Maggie, you had a question?
You're talking about the different stages, and we're talking about anticipatory grief and going through long-term illness with my father with Parkinson's for 27 years. In the last year of his life, we were going deeply into anticipatory grief.
Do you mind coming up? And that way I can have you on the microphone. And that way our wonderful YouTubers can hear what you were going to share. Go ahead.
Okay, my question is about anticipatory grief and what happens afterwards. My father had Parkinson's for 27 years. And in the last year of his life, my mother and I cared for him at home. He died at home with the thanks of hospice. But both of us experienced this anticipatory grief to such a deep level that when he finally passed, and it wasn't an easy passing for him, he did not want to take hold and move to the other side. He was refusing to go, even though he was literally starving to death. But when he was dead, my mom and I both looked at each other and said, oh my God, we are so relieved. There is such an exhale that we had because we were so relieved. And a few days later, we looked at each other and we said, we feel guilty for feeling relieved.
Yes.
Anybody want to respond to that?
I'm going to respond to that because I totally feel you. I cared for my mother for quite a long time. And there were times when I was caring for her that I was like, why don't you just go? And that sounds absolutely horrible, but she was in so much pain, and I was exhausted, as I'm sure you guys were. That's a whole nother level of forgiveness that you need for yourself, because it can be a destructive guilt. And I think oftentimes we find ways to make ourselves feel bad. We find things that if we could have, would have, should have, to stay in places that I'm not going to say are comfortable, but that we're used to, instead of stepping out into that freedom and that joy of the gift that you gave to your father, to have him cared for at home, and how he wouldn't want to leave because he loves you. At the same time, there is a great love in letting go. I don't know if that actually answers your question, but I totally understand your feelings and have experienced them myself.
Thank you. Melissa, go for it, because Joan's really chomping over there. Go ahead, go ahead,
I
go
better
ahead.
get in quick,
Get
right?
in, get in.
Deja vu, Maggie. Yes, and I have experienced so many people that have also been in your shoes, and my heart just goes out to them. And I think of it as what a blessing that you allowed them to go, to move on. And yes, as humans, we feel that, but as angelic beings, they look down upon you and say thank you. And it's the human psyche that messes with us. If we can remove ourselves from that and understand that a lot of their experiences on this earth, when it comes time for them to pass and they're not ready, a lot of it is fear. And again, it's about change, and they're changing too. They're going through a change as well. And it's the fear of the unknown. And if we can educate the entire world with this, that would be wonderful, just to know that there is peace. There's always peace, here, there, wherever. And just being with your loved ones, you have to allow that to move forward, and it's their work too. It's what they need to do on their own. So, peace to you, definitely. Okay, you want this? Do you want it?
Go ahead, Joan.
No, I love it. We all have such a different perspective.
Thank you for sharing your story. I appreciate it very much. It's very difficult to walk that journey with someone. And your father was really blessed to have you and your mother. And I want to acknowledge, yes, you gave them a gift. You also experienced a tremendous loss. 26 years of your life, particularly the last year, devoted to the care of another, which meant whatever you had in your life planned may not have happened. And we as a culture really honor that, but we also forget what loss you went through as you gave up your life. You know, a lot of us are taught to sacrifice our lives, especially women. And so I invite you, as you sit with this new life you have, to, in your grief process, and letting go of the guilt, because you did absolutely nothing wrong. Shame is, there's something wrong with me. Guilt is, I did something wrong. So in the gift that you gave your father, that you will give back the gift to yourself, to pull out of the closet all the dreams that you set aside.
And most people here know that my dream was when I published my book last year, because so many of the drawings in the book came out of that grief.
So congratulations. And that's what I hope for everyone, that after they work through the grief, part of it at that lowest level of isolation is to pull out all the dreams that we may have put on hold or put in the closet, either to care for another person or because we were married and we raised children and there was no opportunity, or because we took the time to love somebody, that we put ourselves on hold. So that's a part of the recovery, is pulling our dreams out of the closet and examining them and putting them into action slowly. So that was, you did. You didn't finish the story, right?
The story still continues.
Yeah.
Right, but you did. You finished
She's in the
story.
journey.
She's in the journey, so.
I spent almost 8 hours at ER last night with my mother, because now I'm going through the journey with her.
So one of the things that I do is I use a lot of metaphors, and I also use sailing as a way to help people to grieve and come into touch. And so one of the great lines is, through our travails and our good care, we grow new hands. We pull the dreams out of the closet and we make them come true. So through our travails, our suffering, our challenges, it gives us that place to do really good self-care. And that is to touch base with the purest sense of yourself through the lens of love.
Thank you. Does anybody want to touch on a grief or a loss or anticipatory grief that is not related to a death? Does anyone have a sharing for that? No. I think you touching on that, go ahead. I have one, but I'll go after you.
After 40 years of being in schools, as a teacher, a counselor, and a principal, retiring. Huge loss for me. Miss the kids.
And the activity,
Yeah, the whole thing, yeah.
the chaos and crazy.
It was absolutely a passion and never a job. But for me, it's almost as though in our culture, we are what we do. We are what we do. And so at this stage of my life, just turning 65, I stand in the mirror and say, well, now, who am I? Who am I? Because I'm no longer what I did. So the dreams have to come out.
Yes.
I have to be busy.
Definitely.
Thank you,
It's
Sharon.
exactly what Joan was stating as well, too. It's like you get to that point and it's like, well, who am I? So if I was asked all of you, who are you? How would you respond? Most people would respond with what? I'm somebody's wife. I'm a secretary. I'm a nurse. I'm a teacher, right? And then if I was asked to ask you again, who are you? You really would have to think, right? Well, you're a compassionate lady who loves the joy of educating and teaching other individuals, and you can still continue that journey just in another form.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Go ahead. Melissa?
And just think of how many lives you touched.
Exactly.
Okay, as we all sit here older, how many can remember a teacher that was special to them? Exactly. So just think of what you put out there. And so now it's, again, about change and doing something different and moving forward. And you seem like a very healthy person. Okay, so now you go, oh, heck yeah, I got all the time now. I can do whatever I want to do. And it's not who are you, it's what are you. Who you are is always going to be, and I love that, the question. Keep asking yourself, who am I? Who am I? And it's not who you are, it's what you are. Okay, who you are is never going to change, but what you are will. So congrats and enjoy your retirement.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And go to the gratitude, maybe make a scrapbook, maybe a whole vision board of everything that that you had envisioned, and kind of make it complete, tie a little bow of like, wow, that chapter is sacred and holy, and I'm grateful for it, and now you get to open up the new page and start again. I like what you said about, hold on one second, I like what you said about remembering who you are. I'm going through that too right now. My daughter announced after high school a few months ago that she is planning to move to Australia. And I thought, out of all the places in the world, she chose Australia. And I had, now that I know it is called anticipatory grief, she left a month ago. But for probably the last 4 or 5 months, I've been completely devastated. Like, she lost, like she's gone. She's Australia. She's probably watching this at some point. And my husband says, by the way, I did remarry my best friend, who was friends with my prior fiance, and through that loss, we fell into love and been together ever since. And so he walked through the entire journey of me losing my prior fiance. And so you just don't know what's on the other side, because I look at my life now and who I'm with, and everything wound up beautifully. But my husband said to me, you're acting as if she's lost. She's right here. Like, enjoy the time that she is with you right now. But Australia, oh my God, and flying there. And anyways, here is. She texts me every day, and we're on FaceTime, and it's like she's in the other room, and it's fantastic. And now I'm going to go hang out with her. And so it's really, there are other things besides death where you feel like, like taking the wind out of your sails. I had to say that because of Joan. Anyways, go ahead, Denise.
I just wanted to address you specifically because I was a teacher in Miami-Dade for over 20 years, and I came here to care for my mom, and she died in the midst of moving, but I had left my community, I had left my job, I had left all my friends, and here you are, and it looks like you have a wonderful community. And to let you know, look at this community that is here. I mean, I never thought at 60 I would be recreating my life and finding wonderful, beautiful people that share my heart and my vision about what the world should look like and is, but now I'm aligning myself with that, and that I see that in you. And I really look forward to seeing what you're going to be doing. Yeah.
I'm just going to say the Holistic Chamber puts on these. And we are an organization not just because we're professionals, have modalities or services, but we also have private memberships because we are a community as well. So we have many people who join this community, to have friends, to have people to know, and you might find in your new endeavors that you like a particular specialty. There are people who join us just to learn about what everyone does. It's like, wow, I want to lean into that more because now I have the time and space in my life to do it. So it's surprising who joins. We have many, many, many people who aren't sure, going through life changes, going through transitions, and just know that there's something that they're open to and they allow it. And they come into our organization and find wonderful, wonderful surprises. Okay, Joan, go ahead. What you got?
Just a comment about identity. Anytime there's a change in identity. One of the research questions that I ask is, describe yourself, which is the first one. And the second is, finish the sentence, I am. And when we come to some really deep healing, the answer is, I am. I am. So if you're working towards finding the I am in you and figuring out what your new identity is, I've asked some of the gals, I was going to do this earlier, but if we can, if you would like me to hold space in prayer, I am a chaplain, so I do pray a lot. It's my gift. Doris Day was asked one time, how can you spend 3 to 4 hours a day in prayer? Like, how do you get so much done when you spend all this time in prayer? Well, when you spend time in prayer and connecting with our purest self, love, and God, great things happen. So I'm going to invite you, if you'd like to write on this little piece of paper. They're going to give you a piece of paper, and if you want to write something in that prayer as something you want, some loss that you're experiencing, and you just want me to pray for you. You don't have to put your name on it, because God already knows who you are, but you want me to hold space for that for you. Please feel free to do it. I don't have to, you can put it in the box. There's a box over there, and then there's a little box. The big box I can't get into, which is wooden, and the silver box, I can look at it. And I'd be really happy to keep your prayer, hold you in prayer. And the other thing is, since I realize that every single one of us has experienced grief and loss, I have brought roses and flowers for each and every one of you. So I'm going to set them at the back table, and I will invite you to come and get your rose and to take that home with me, just to honor who you are, the I am, your purest self, as you work through the grief.
Beautiful. Candy?
It occurs to me, as I'm hearing this and looking at my own losses, changes, because synonym seems...
Do you want to come up here on the microphone, or you want to stay off camera? It's up to you. But Candy Taylor Love always has something profound to say, so I'd rather have it on camera.
I'm just not projecting well.
So I'm Candy. And it occurred, as all of you are so candid about your own losses and others sharing, that I had my own. And it occurred to me that after grade school, I went to junior high, and there was a huge change and loss. And then there was junior high to high school. It was in the same building where I lived. It was 9 through 12 then, or 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're all in one building, but again, we went to a different part of the building. So it was that simple change, but it was a loss because I was no longer and I was, versus the bigger ones, which were claiming so well, whether it's being a teacher for 12, well, I've had 4 careers. So each one of them was a different city and a different job. And then there was this thread that I wove among them all to make them work, to make sense of it all. And yet to focus on the loss as the piece that was motivating me didn't occur to me, because when I was 4, my dad was in a car accident, should have died and didn't. When I was 15, he was in a gun accident and should have died and didn't. So my entire childhood was with a man, family, was very close, went back to work every time, that was in constant death, but we never talked about it, we never made it like death, because he was alive. And so the loss was always something we lived with. It was like an undercurrent. As we're all going through, turning 13, I don't know, I chose that age because it's the teenage year. And then we're 21, they make big deals of all of our age changes. And what had occurred to me, and we can go on of all the changes, is how very brave we are as human beings. And we don't take credit for that. I'm sitting back there going, oh, okay. Rather than, I've got these stories, and yes, they're heavy, and we need to own the heaviness. But the counterpart is, it occurred to me that why I do what I do, which is yoga teaching, body work, consciousness development, a long list of things, is because I got home in my body. Because this is where we live. And so breathing, when somebody exhaled up here, I think it was Lainie, that it is the fact that our breath carries us through all this, and that we're really brave just showing up every single day.
Beautiful. Thank you. So we're going to wrap up, and what I'd like to do is have each of you just say few final thoughts. And if you have a special offer, each one of them has a booth, including Cheryl Friedman as well. You could talk to Cheryl and any of our wonderful panelists at their area after this. So just a final completion and a special offer for everyone today. Joan, do you have a special offer?
Sure. So I have cards in the back, and on the back of the card is my address. I've moved several times, and so that's the correct phone number. And there's a little flower drawn on the back. So if you'd like to work with me, I have a half-price special for working with you. And my real offer is to offer you also the rose, to take it, or a flower, whichever you like, and to remember that in concrete, flowers can find their way through and bloom and blossom and find the light and show the world how beautiful we are, regardless of what's happened.
Thank you. Melissa?
Well, I am a life mastery coach, a Reiki practitioner, and I like to work both of those modalities into one to help you to bring about healing. Coaching is a dual partnership. So I'm offering a half-hour complimentary consultation, and I also have other packages that would go along with them to help you to achieve and create a new place to be in your life.
Thank you. Dolores?
Well, to piggyback you, Joan, like all flowers, we all bloom in our own time, right? Some of my specials, I have a handout if you come and visit me at the booth over there. I have this 6-week workshop, which is called Heart Wisdom, which is a navigation to your own wounds, how to identify them, feel them, embrace them. It's with sacred sound therapy as well with flower essence. So I use a lot of different modalities in that. And I am also offering house clearance and blessings. So just come pick up the sheet over there. There's a couple of different offers. Thanks.
Okay, I also have a handout over there. It is complimentary. It is a tapping script. I am from the Naples area, so if you are interested in working with me via Zoom or a phone call, I would offer a half an hour free to help get you set up on a tapping script that would work for you. I do a program called Change Your Frequency, Change Your Life, out of a center in Naples called Light the Way, where I incorporate Beamer, essential oils, aromatherapy dome tent, and EFT. And that would give you, on this flyer, there's a 10% off for that. I also have the CD that has the meditations from that we were using, and I have a few over there. They're $15. $10 of that for now I am donating to Southwest Florida's College Single Women's Scholarship, and so if anybody's interested, I have just a few of those.
Do you have CDs as well, Dolores?
I have a couple left.
Okay.
I forgot, but I do have some. I made a custom blend of an anointing oil as well too. That's over there. It comes with a 15-minute consultation on how to use the self-care anointing oil.
I need my glasses to find my glasses. Anyone want to go through that? Has everyone given their completion? Goodness. Okay. Well, that's going to wrap that up, but I do want to have a few announcements, and we can go ahead and keep that on camera. I'm really wanting to share this CD. It's a labor of love, and there are 4 recording artists out of the 13 here. Of course, we just mentioned Denise Flood, who did Forgiveness, and we have Dolores Gozzi here, who did Empowerment. And we had Candy Taylor Love, who was speaking earlier, talk about love. And I'm on there talking about nature and really who we truly are inside as powerful beings connected to the earth, to the air, to the fire, and the water. And there are topics on expansion and wealth and oneness and enlightenment and peace and healing and awakening and freedom. I highly encourage all of you to at least sample this online. You could purchase it online. It's on every digital platform from Apple to Amazon to Spotify. It's literally everywhere you can find it, and we have physical CDs here. And they're 5-minute meditations. And my clients, when I do my personal readings, each time we look at the work that we've done in our counseling sessions, and we have them do each day 5 minutes. It will make a very big impact, and that's why we did this together as a community. So we're very proud of this, and I'm glad that a good majority of them are here today. An honorable mention to Howard Wulkan. My husband and I, we produced this album, and my husband is a composer, a very conscious composer, and he paired up with all 13 of us to bring the voice out musically. So there's a beautiful dance between everyone's voices and messages and what Howard brought forward in his own interpretation, a very enlightened human being. Okay. So a couple other things I want to mention. First off, next month, we are looking at a holistic approach to cancer. We've talked a lot about cancer today, and we're going to talk about it a lot next month. Deb Martine from Lotus Blossom Clinic will be moderating it, and we are going to be talking with supportive and preventative care. And actually, Amy Ribicki in the back will be on the panel along with Dr. David Martine from Lotus Blossom Clinic, Vicki Gilardi from Lotus Blossom Clinic, and Stephanie Rourke from Living Vine Wellness, formerly from Living Vine Cafe. They have a wellness center as well. It's going to be a very, very wonderful panel. If you want to know about all of our panels for next year, we are already well ahead of it. We have these back there for you to look at. I'm not going to name them all because they're right back there, but we have so many that are just incredible, from oils to CBD to energy healing to abundance and healing the subconscious mind. So I encourage you to take that and really look at April 11th. I know I'm going to say that at every panel. I look over at you because you were at the last fair, but April 11th is a very extraordinary gathering of many of our members. right at Crown Plaza, Fort Myers Bell Tower, is our one-day adventure and wellness. And not only are we going to have all of these beautiful beings there doing sessions and information, we're going to have panels going, we're going to have movement going, we have a food court, we have food demos. It's just an incredible, incredible day. Adventures and wellness, there's flyers back there. Lastly, so much that we talk about today in people transitioning and illness and dis-ease is based on the things that we eat and our emotions and our mindset and lots of things that bring forward illness. And so a lot of what we do here at the Holistic Chamber of Commerce are bring services and products that educate you and help to heal wherever you are in your journey. And we put together an extraordinary event. It's our first retreat that you're all invited to. And if you haven't heard about it, we've been mentioning it, and there's flyers back there, but the Ultimate Food Healing Retreat is a powerful, powerful get-together, a week in Isla Mujeres, an hour flight from here over to Cancun, and then onto the island of Isla Mujeres. And we're calling it the Food Healing Retreat because it's going to be 5 days of conscious discussion on healing the body on all levels, healing the mind, healing the heart, emotional, mental, physical well-being. And Candy Taylor-Love is here, Amy Ribicki, they're on the teaching team, myself. And actually the founder of the Holistic Chamber of Commerce, Camille Leon, who started this, the chambers across the country in Canada, she's even coming in from Vegas to come to this retreat. So we invite you all, they're limited seats, but what we are doing today is having one raffle in December. And you can buy a ticket here, and actually the proceeds help support what we do here. And for a $10 ticket, you may be one of the lucky ones to get a $795 comp to this, or if you're not a member, a $995 comp. So we have tickets available here. The raffle will be drawn in December, but one lucky person will be getting a free pass to this week of absolute transformation and nourishment. We're going to feed you. We're going to supply you with love on all levels. So if you're interested in this, please see us. That is our Ultimate Food Healing Retreat. Lastly, our brand new fall directories have come out. This is a very big handful of a lot of our members. There's special offers in here. You're welcome to take stacks. We have lots of them. You're welcome to take stacks and give them out to your friends, drop them off wherever you feel called to. But this is your guide to letting you know who we are, and a lot of the information of what we have up to is in this book. Lastly, Barbara Havens is having a fabulous event at Unity of Fort Myers on October 5th. I thought she should come up and talk about that. Yay, Barbara, and thank you, Unity of Fort Myers.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I just want to thank you all for coming here to Unity of Fort Myers to experience this panel, and to remind you that the third Saturday of every month, they do a panel here, a different subject every month, as Lainie mentioned. They even have their own special place on our bulletin boards with their flyers.
I was noticing that. Thank you.
Yes. And so keep an eye on that. There's other events that we're hosting here at Unity of Fort Myers throughout toward the end of the year. Some flyers are up there. And what Lainie was alluding to is this Saturday, the 5th, from 9 to noon, we are hosting a pet blessing here on our campus. And as you drive out, you might see the bell tower out there by the lake, and the blessing itself is going to be at the bell tower. So bring your furry friends, and we're going to have a adoption bus here. If you don't have a pet and you want to get one, then we have that. There's also going to be a group here who will do vaccinations and things like that. And we're having vendors. And it's not only about the pets, we're also going to have some human food available here. So you can just come and enjoy yourselves for a few hours and bring your babies. And thank you very much. We do appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Before we complete, let's just take a moment of silence and everybody bring forward that special person if they have had a loss. If they've had something that is going on in their heart, that they're grieving, it doesn't have to be a person, but just everyone take a moment of silence. Just take a deep breath in. Let it out. Honor them for the lessons they brought to you. Give thanks for the experience. And trust in yourself that all is perfectly in alignment. You being here is on a divine appointment. We've all come here together to connect as one. And we give thanks. And so it is. Thank you. All right.